The Toronto Maple Leafs are linked to a potential blockbuster trade, as well as some shocking details have been revealed about the Elias Lindholm trade and where he may have ended up during this trade. And I'll break it all down for you coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we get into it, just want to say that 80% of you guys watching this aren't subscribed to the channel. So if you're big NHL fans like all of us here, make sure to go down below and hit that subscribe button. We're on the road for 3,000 subscribers and we're almost there. Really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed already, go down below, hit that subscribe button. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic of the video today, which is Lindholm was almost a Ranger. And as shocking as that may seem to you, we do have a quote here from TSN reporter Darren Dreger where he said, in complications including their first round pick in 2024, the New York Rangers would like to add a forward. I'm told they did make an offer for Elias Lindholm, but that was clearly not accepted. James Dolan wants to protect the 2024 first-round pick so that the Rangers can be a part of the spotlight at the draft at the Sphere, because Dolan is also the owner of the Sphere in Las Vegas. The Rangers won't want to be a part of that spectacle in Vegas, and I know it's not really set in stone, the trade here, but I mean, it does seem like the Rangers were heavily invested in bringing in Elias Lindholm to the Rangers during this trade, and they had an offer in, including their 2024 first-round pick, and it's no surprise to anybody that the New York Rangers were looking to add a forward, and Elias Lindholm would be the perfect 2C for this team, but unfortunately the owner did not want to give away this first round draft pick. He wants to make a trade or a draft pick at the Sphere and wants to be a part of that, because I mean, this is a once in a lifetime thing. I don't think the NHL draft will ever be at the Sphere again. I mean, it may as well could be, but I think right now, being a part of that is more the focus for them. But I do think that this could have been a great trade for New York. Obviously, he did end up going to Vancouver, and obviously this is going to work out for them. It seems like the trade's already working out for Calgary with Kuzmenko potting one last night for Calgary. So, at the end of the day, this he could have been a Ranger. He could have went to New York. We could never have seen him in Vancouver, but obviously this offer was pulled, and they weren't able to secure Elias Lindholm, which I really think could have helped out this Rangers team. This Rangers team has such a great roster. It seems like they're in the mix almost every year, and I think adding a guy like Lindholm would have really bolstered their roster going into the playoffs this year and really solidified, their top six, and could have been a great trade. But unfortunately, we did not see that happen. And the real question that this poses here now is, if they want to keep that draft pick for the upcoming draft, I mean, they don't really have much to offer here at the trade deadline, which, as we take a look here, it says, unfortunately for New York, their team needing to make a blockbuster deal if they want to become Stanley Cup champions, and without the use of their 2024 first-round pick as a trade asset, their movable pieces are certainly limited. And they hit the nail on the head with this here. Obviously, a first-round pick is going to bring you in a great top six potential player, a top two pairing defensemen as well. If you pair this up at the trade deadline, there are a lot of names out there that you could have used this first round pick for, but you do still have some young prospects here in New York that they could trade. They do have their other picks that they can work for a trade at the deadline as well, but more of what we're going to see here coming for the trade deadline for the New York Rangers is solidifying their bottom six and maybe adding a third pairing defenseman if this is what they see fit. I think this is, with the assets they have and what they can do, I think this is what we will see come out of New York. Obviously, they want to keep that first round pick, so we won't see any blockbuster trades coming New York's way unless, a big name is offered to them and they have to give up this pick to bring in such a big name player. But it will be interesting to see what the Rangers do come trade deadline, because, without this first round pick, they kind of have to look at other options here now to bring guys in, and it'll be really interesting to see what they do down there in New York. But it is very unfortunate that they weren't able to land a guy like Elias Lindholm. He ends up going to Vancouver, which, Vancouver's looking like heavy cup contenders right now, adding this guy, and I'm sure there's going to be more moves to come for them at the deadline, as well as the Rangers. But Let me know what do you think down below in the comment section about New York keeping this first round pick, and just let me know down below what are your thoughts on it. Like I said, would have been great to see him land in New York, but then the other side, he ended up in Vancouver, and it looks like this trade's going to work out for both sides. But we're going to get into the second topic of the video today, which is the Leafs are linked to a huge trade. And before we get into it here, I just want to say that, this report is not the most reputable source. He is a scout for, the European side. He's just scout, they scouts European players. And, but he did come out here, and we see here that the Leafs are up to something with the Western Conference team the last 24 hours. Buzz coming from Canada. And Sam Turpak, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, he says, this could be a bigger deal than you think. Guys going both ways, picks, prospects. We will see where this heads. I would not be surprised if the D group looks very different sooner rather than later. And he also did reply down at his Twitter. He said, I honestly think it's the Flames. Now, I don't know names, so I could be completely off. But if I had to guess based on what your living likes, it could involve Hanifin and or Tanev, and I would not be surprised if it involves Liljegren or Abruzzese finding their way to Calgary here. And obviously, this is huge news. I know Toronto usually keeps things hush-hush when they're doing trades, doing signings. We don't really hear much come out of Toronto. But hearing this come out, of a, sort of a reliable source here in, a scout. He knows the game, and he kind of, can make an educated guess at this. And I think this would be great for Toronto. Obviously, this Chris Tanev is a guy we've talked about here on the channel a lot. A guy that we think that they're going to target come trade deadline. But Hanifin is the one who really interests me here. We didn't really see much about Hanifin potentially moving to Toronto. So if they are trying to get Hanifin and Tanev in one deal, this would be huge for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This would be a huge package deal. We would see Liljegren, Abruzzese, as he says. I would say a bunch of picks here. I'd say their first would go back the other direction in this trade. But the big thing is, if you're giving up your first, giving maybe potentially, a first round pick up for this upcoming draft to bring in these guys, I think you really need to have one of these guys locked up. You need to have an extension in place before traded, because you don't really want to give up a first round pick on a rental. Even though it would bolster this Leafs defense going into the playoffs, it could be great for them. But at the end of the day, if you give up a first, you don't end up winning the Stanley Cup. You don't have any draft capital. You don't have anything to make a trade with come, the draft, come next off season, whatever it may be, or even drafting a young prospect with this pick. I mean, the Leafs aren't expected to have a high round draft pick this upcoming draft because they're hoping to be contenders, hoping to make a strong push here. So I do think that we will see this asset traded, and if it's traded for a guy like Hanifin and Tanev, I think this could be a great deal for Toronto. And as we take a look here, this is Noah Hanifin, his stats so far this season with Calgary: 26 points in 50 games, 73 blocks, 31 hits. He is on the last year of his deal. Like I said, he does have a no trade clause here, but his cap hit at $4.95 million. They could easily, figure out a way to work this cap situation out here in Toronto. And as we take a look at Chris Tanev, obviously, as a guy we talked about a lot here on the channel, 142 blocks is the big thing to look at here. Great stay-at-home defenseman. It could really solidify this Leafs decor going forward. And he is also on the last year of his deal here at $4.5 million. And obviously, the no trade clause here is something that is interesting. Both these guys, I believe, have no trade clauses and stuff like this that they would have to work out. But with the way Calgary is in right now, really looks like they're having an outside shot of making the playoffs. They could go on a run here and, be in a playoff spot. But if both of these guys want to go to playoff teams, want to go to contenders, I really do think they waive this no trade clause to come to Toronto. And it could be a great deal for, both sides here. Calgary's kind of gearing up here now, doing a little retool, getting as many assets, as many picks as they can to try to rebuild and salvage this team come this offseason. And Toronto is looking to bolster their defense going into this playoffs and try to solidify, their defensive core and really help them make a push here for the Stanley Cup this year. And I really like this Hanifin trade. I really think this could be a great option for Toronto. This guy's a great two-way defenseman. He's a guy who's going to block the shots for you, but he can also contribute on the offensive end. He's, a great playmaker. He has a great shot back there from the point, and Chris Tanev as well, a great stay-at-home defenseman, a guy who's not going to get on the score sheet as much as a guy like Hanifin, but he's a guy who's just going to shut it down back there. 142 blocks so far this season. He's a guy who's going to put it all on the line for you. Like I've said multiple times in this video, this guy's a warrior. He's going to go to battle for the Toronto if he does get traded here, and I really do like this trade option for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I really do think this could be an option we see. We've heard a lot of talk about them linked to Calgary and stuff like this. Obviously, Brad Living being the former general manager in Calgary, he knows these guys. These are guys he has signed. He signed 2 contracts in Calgary, and I think bringing them into the Toronto is, plays a great deal for Toronto as well, because he signed their previous contracts. He could easily extend these guys for future seasons in Toronto if traded. And the real question that, you have to ask yourself, that Trillving and the Leafs have to ask ourselves, is it worth it in this situation? And, in my personal opinion, as a hockey fan, I do think this is worth it for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You are giving up a few younger guys here in Liljegren and Abruzzese. Probably, another prospect as well. Maybe a guy like Tapi Niemela if you go trade for both guys. But I think you could easily bring one of these guys in. Chris Tanev could be brought in like solo in a trade for maybe Liljegren, maybe, and if you're going for Hanifin and both of these guys, you're going to have to throw that first in. You're going to have to throw another guy in like Abruzzese, like Liljegren, like Tapi Niemela, guys like this. It will be interesting to see what the Toronto Maple Leafs do come trade deadline. There have been reports of them saying, maybe they won't make a trade at the deadline. Maybe they're set with the roster they have now, and maybe they'll, fix the holes in their roster come this offseason. But I do think that Brad Treliving could make a big swing here come trade deadline and really put the Leafs on the map and really solidify themselves as contenders right now. I know a lot of people say they need a shakeup, but I don't really think they need a shakeup. I think just bringing, a guy, one or two guys in here at the deadline could really help this team out and really solidify themselves for the playoffs. And if they don't make a trade come trade deadline, I do think they have a great roster here, a roster that could easily make a deep playoff run and have a shot at the Stanley Cup. It'll be really interesting to see, though, what happens here in Toronto. And let me know down below in the comment section, what are your thoughts on this? What do you think about Hanifin and Tanev potentially coming to Toronto, and do you think giving up a first for these guys is too much? Personally, I think it'd be a great deal if this does happen, but let me know down below in the comment section. We're going to get in everybody's favorite topic here, and that is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to our boy Daniel. He says, what I will do, KC, I give them the first and a player only if it's a sign and trade. I don't want to overpay for a rental. Too many lately. And shout out to you, Daniel, kind of, reiterating what I said in this video. Obviously, shout out to you, Daniel. You've been day one supporter here on the channel. We love seeing you down in the comment section below. But I have to agree with Daniel here. I think, getting rid of this first and a player is a great option for Toronto. And if you're bringing a guy in, I think you do want to extend him further than this season. But I know Brad Treliving and the Leafs will do what they see fit here, and I know they will make the right move because we've seen it multiple times from Brad Treliving in Calgary. But let us know if you enjoyed this video. Make sure to go down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Like I said, we're on the road for 3,000 subscribers. We just hit 2,700. Just want to thank all you guys for your continued support here on the channel. It means so much to myself and my co-host Mark. But if you enjoy the NHL, make sure to go check out this video that's popping up on your screen right now that we did yesterday about Joseph Woll and Trevor Zegras to Montreal. It's definitely an interesting one, so make sure to check that one out. But as always, I've been your host, KC. Keep your stick on the ice.